Well, good day to you. I'm very pleased to say that team have got another great presenter to have a fireside chat with today. And I've got with me Joe Major, who has supported team at our conference with some fantastic presentations on the importance of DE&I. And it's lovely to have you here, Joe. And just so tell me, let's get into this fairly quickly. Tell me about your background and how you've come to be the banging the drum for such an important subject.
Topic, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, firstly, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. In terms of my background, I've been in the recruitment industry now for just coming up to 23 years. The majority of that time, 17 years, just over actually spent on desk billing, worked in a whole range of different sectors and ran lots of different types of desks, from really quick turnaround kind of like contract stuff right through to C-suite and retained work. I moved from being desk-based into a L&D role. So I was a global recruiter sales trainer for a couple of years. And at the same time, I had a little bit of an internal side hustle and supported the business that I worked with in their work around diversity and inclusion, social impact, CSR, and all of that kind of like beyond profit human stuff. Fast forward a couple of years and a brief stint at APSCO during the lockdown period, which gave me a really good overview of the recruitment industry. I set up my business diversity in recruitment back in summer 2023 with the absolute mission of working with recruiters, both agency side and internal, to help them get to grips with diversity and inclusion in a way that makes sense to them as recruiters. So I spend most of my days training and advising recruitment businesses and internal teams on how to make their services for candidates more inclusive, more accessible, and more equitable, and how to build out the services, guidance and advice that they can then provide to their clients. So that's it in a little bit of a nutshell.
Then, and how has the industry responded to the challenge, if you like?
Yeah, really good question. When I first told people about what I was planning on doing, there were a few that said, good luck with that. However, my actual journey, I knew there was a need, okay? So whether that's a commercial need or a human need, more and more organizations, more of our clients are looking at the benefits of our diversity and inclusive cultures, right? They're doing the work internally to make sure that their organizations are representative of the communities that they serve. And the only way in which they can succeed in that work is by looking at their talent supply line. And for many, many businesses that are reliant on the recruitment industry, they're going to be looking at us, at their talent partners, their recruitment partners, to help them do the work. And so for a lot of recruitment businesses, they're having these conversations with their clients around D&I and finding that actually it's a really complex topic. And although they're experts in recruitment, the whole ED&I thing goes beyond just reading a few articles and doing a bit of research, right? They actually need the education just to strategically support their clients. So many businesses are seeing this happening and want to be in a position where they're not getting caught out at job brief stage or when they're putting together their pitch documents and proposals. And they want to be able to go out to their clients and say, this is something that we're experiencing. So my experience has been super positive. Look, I'll be totally honest, as an industry, we're not all there yet. There are still some businesses that don't see a need for this, that maybe don't really understand what inequality looks like or see the importance of their role. But there are so many businesses, and I've been so grateful to the ones that have chosen to work with me, who are prepared to do the work, who want to bring in somebody like me to develop how they work with their clients and their candidates. So there is definitely an appetite there. and I'm continuing to do the work and continuing to be busy. And the more this topic, the louder this topic gets, the more recruitment businesses are looking for folks like me to come in and work with them. That makes sense?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think you're right there that the clients need educating. And if we as recruiters haven't been educated ourselves, we do need the detail about how, and then you can bring real value, because there are a few companies, and you know them, and I think you've worked with a couple of them, people like Ellis Knight that are working within Team, and also Francis at Level Equals, who's built a business around diversity and inclusion in the sports space. If you dip your toe in with a little bit of knowledge, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So you really have to understand all the elements of, we mustn't call it a topic. It should be, what is it? It's a revolution, really, or an evolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if anyone's bidding for a contract now, there's a whole chunk of really detailed, in most of the contracts are out there for in the recruitment space, a whole chunk of really detailed requirements for DE&I understanding, and what's your policy, what is your strategy, how do you work with your existing clients, where are your case studies to support that. So I think if agencies and consultancies haven't got behind it yet, they're going to miss the boat. They're going to be beaten by some of their competitors. And what sort of size company are you working with? What's your avatar? What's a typical company?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I tend to work with SMEs. I'm finding that a lot of the larger recruitment businesses have taken that really positive step to actually appoint an internal diversity and inclusion person. Sometimes I'm approached by those organizations because I'm so specialist, just focus on the recruitment side of things. But yeah, it's a whole range of different size businesses. I can be working with kind of a global SME with a headcount of 250, or I could be working with an independent recruiter who just wants to do things differently. So it's really, really broad. And it's interesting what you said there about Paul from Ellis Knight and Francis from Level Equals, that they're two really good examples of how the recruitment businesses that have really pivoted ahead of the curve and are actually looking at upskilling themselves to be able to then pass on that expertise to their clients. And look, ultimately, we're always going to be recruiters. We're not trying to sell ourselves as ED&I experts. No. But if we can change what we do, evolve what we do, to increase the number of candidates that we can then represent, and we can advise our clients on how their recruitment processes may create deselection points or put candidates off, then that is it's an extra string to our bow, if that makes sense. And really, tomorrow's recruiter should understand the principles of inclusive, accessible, and equitable recruitment. It's not a fad, it's not a fashion. It's what's happening in the world. And we've woken up to the fact that perhaps the way in which we've evolved as an industry is creating barriers to large communities, large populations of talent that we just can't get hold of. And it's affecting our ability to be able to fill our jobs ultimately.
Do you think COVID, which caused so many problems, stresses for everyone for a couple of years, there's some of the positives that have come out of COVID: remote working, flexible working, hybrid working, and also looking further afield and looking at other communities for your resource. Do you think that's helped some of the energy for embracing DEI strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID and other world events that happened during that time, where we all kind of stopped and paused and reflected, have given us an opportunity to be more socially aware. I think I've experienced this as a recruiter. You're so absorbed in what you do. Sometimes it's really difficult to kind of look out of your bubble and see what's going on in the world. I think that worked within the recruitment businesses were looking at the social aspects of their organization and actually seeing how their leadership teams were responding to not just COVID, but other social events, and maybe taking more notice and subsequently holding their businesses to account. And almost, we see this a lot more in different generations. So, our Gen Zers, our early careers talent, recruiters that are between the ages of kind of 20, 25, they come to the industry with a totally different mindset. They're a lot more socially aware. And they want to know how businesses responded during that time. And I just think that we've perhaps as an industry started to our social radars developed and evolved.
Yeah, good. And how do my members, how can they access your services? I remember when we spoke last year, you were running some courses and stuff, or are you working more one-to-one now?
I do sometimes run open courses. It's a really good question. I'm actually looking at how I take a lot of the work that I do on LinkedIn. I'm very, very visible on LinkedIn. Yeah. I've got a kind of mindset of sharing as much knowledge as possible, rather than just constantly sharing my opinion, which I do a fair amount of, but I try to share resources. And I'm looking at actually how I can build a community platform, an online app-based network where I actually have a stack of resources across a whole range of different D&I topics and areas, and actually sharing bi-weekly insight sessions on there. So that's something, thanks for asking, because that's something that I'm looking to launch in the next few weeks. But yeah, all the usual routes. I'll hopefully be doing the rounds at all the events this year.
Yeah. Well,
pestering people to talk about ED&I.
For a couple of our events and hopefully our conference as well in June.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
And how do you see the importance of, how do you see 2023? Is this an opportunity for recruiters to support their clients, because they can't find candidates at the moment, and if they open their eyes to those opportunities and have perhaps deeper, more meaningful discussions with their clients with some education about DE&I, then
absolutely. How do I see 2023? I think that hopefully more recruitment businesses are going to be looking at ED&I as a way of evolving their talent pools and increasing their capability and capacity to support their clients, as well as seeing it as a social issue and a quality issue, which for me it will always be. I think there are more organisations that are investing in education. They are understanding that actually the work that they've done so far around ED&I is scratching the surface. And if they want to make this part of their products and services for candidates and clients, it's better for them to actually start looking at learning and development and getting that education. So I think that it's really, really promising and positive to see that this is on the agenda for a lot of recruitment businesses, and you don't have to be a global, 2,000 population business for this to matter to you. It's it's on the agenda of so many different types of businesses.
Well, thank you for today. I'm very pleased to say, coming up in the next week or two, I've got similar interviews with Francis at Level Equals, talking about his move with that business on this subject, and also Patrick from Ellis Knight talking about their job board that they've developed and wrapped around, especially for DEI communities, DE&I communities. So if you're interested in this subject, come back and have a look again. But Jo, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Really supportive, and thank you for all the support you give to team and team members with this hugely important subject.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you giving me a platform to have a voice and talk about something I'm really passionate about.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye bye.